Sweet, fantastic. Yep. Welcome everyone to day one of Recycling Week. This is our first webinar for the week and I'm incredibly excited, not just because it's Recycling Week, but also because we've got some awesome speakers lined up for today. Now, just a few housekeeping rules for the webinar. You are all muted and your cameras are all closed, so we can't see you, we can't hear you, but we would love to have your questions come through. So you should be able to see in the top ribbon above, right next to your leave button, you should have a ribbon that says Q&A. Please comment via that. So as the questions come through, we'll be asking them of our speakers at the end. There's the react button, so the speakers can't actually see you, but we would love to see that you're engaging with them. So react, with clapping, with hearts, with laughing, whatever it is. And just an update, just to let you know that the webinar is being recorded. So it will be published later on today for all of you guys that miss it to watch. Now, Recycling Week, day one, Procurement Monday. The aim of today is for us to only purchase what is made to be recycled, reused, or repurposed. When we buy a product, we also buy any waste associated with it. So when we're thinking of the waste minimization hierarchy, we're thinking of the avoid, which is your number one thing that you can do when it comes to any waste or recycling or material, is to not have that material to start with, so then you don't have to think about how you dispose. This theme hopefully gets to be maintained for the rest of the week, and every day of the week we'll just add on to, if you can't avoid, then what else can you do? To help us really bring this daily focus to life, we have two awesome companies or awesome organizations that are doing some amazing work in that food waste space. So we're joined by Sophie from the Love Food Hate Waste New Zealand initiative, and the Compost Collective. We have SJ joining us. Now, I won't give you guys an introduction because I'm confident that you were introducing yourselves. So Sophie, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Natalia. Kia ora everyone. My name is Sophie and I'm part of Love Food Hate Waste, which is a global network that runs research and campaigns to help reduce food waste in the home. So I'm really happy to be here, and I want to congratulate everyone in the room for taking part in Recycling Week, and I really hope today inspires you on your food waste reduction journey. So next slide, please. Oh, I can't see. Oh, there we go. So what we know is that as a nation, food waste is a huge problem. $3.2 billion of food is thrown away every year just by households. So that's not supermarkets, that's not farmers, that's not restaurants, that's just normal folk like you and I at home. The average Kiwi household throws away around $1,500 worth of food each. That's the equivalent of at least 3 solid trolley loads, depending on where you shop, of course. Or enough to feed Dunedin for at least 3 years, which is unbelievable. Next slide, please. So when we think about the issue of food waste, 88% of people in New Zealand agree that it just seems really wrong to waste so much food, especially when 1 in 5 New Zealand children live in households experiencing food insecurity. And we're all facing like the cost of living crisis. But often when we waste food, it goes into our rubbish bins, and then that goes away to landfill. In landfill, it breaks down and it generates greenhouse gases. And as we all know, greenhouse gases contribute to climate change. And food waste is the 3rd largest contributor to global carbon emissions. Incredibly, if it were a country, it would be ranked 3rd under China and the US for global emissions. But the great news is you're all here, firstly, and there's some really practical and tangible steps that we can all take to tackle this global issue. Next slide. So before we look at the tips, I think it's important for us to understand or think about why we waste food. So we know that just over 1/3 of Kiwis, they agree that a busy lifestyle makes it really hard to avoid food waste. But we know the top reasons are food going off before you can finish it, or food going off before it's used by or best before date, or simply not planning sufficiently. Next slide, please. So as a consumer and a lover of foods, I try really hard to minimize my waste, but I am human just like all of us, and it can be really easy to cook or buy excess that ends up in the compost or trash. So by setting aside a small amount of time to think about what we're going to eat in the week ahead and review what we already have, we can then shop smartly and only buy what we need. When we get home, if we store things right and we stick to our plan, we'll be able to eat everything we buy, and only the bare minimum will go into your compost bin. Next slide. So first up, checking the fridge, freezer, cupboards to know what you already have and what is expiring soon is critical. We want to sketch out, if you can, the meals for the week ahead. Think about who's at home, who's in on what nights. Try and plan a couple of easy meals or meals from the freezer that you can skip if your plans change at the last minute. Or check out recipes that are flexible, or flexipes, as we like to call them at Love Food Hate Waste. There's lots on our website where you can bulk cook certain ingredients and then use them for different dishes throughout the week. But the most important thing, which can save you up to 40% in your shopping each week, is a good old-fashioned shopping list. It will not only save you time when you're at the store, but definitely saves you money. So before you head to the shops, put pen to paper or create a list on your phone. If you're really short on time and don't have time to kind of sit down and do that audit and write a list, take a couple of photos on your phone of your fridge or your pantry. So when you're at the supermarket thinking, do we have that? You can quickly have a look and do a sense check. Next slide, please. And then when you're at the supermarket, it's all about sticking to that list. So multi-buys or discounted products can often be very tempting, but something is only a bargain if you actually eat it. Next slide, please. So you've planned and you've shopped, and now it's time to put everything away. A few years back, Love Food Hate Waste partnered with the University of Otago, and they did some tests to test storage practices for some common vegetables. So over the years, we've built up a massive bank of storage tips, and I'm going to fly through a few tips now, but there's many more you can check out online. Next slide, please. So if you store the humble carrots, if you store them in an airtight container lined with paper, they'll last up to 10 times longer. Next slide, please. The fruit bowl is the worst place for the banana to be. Ethylene gas released by fruits like apples and pears will cause the banana to ripen faster. And once bananas are ripe, they then produce ethylene gas, which then ripens all the other fruit in your fruit bowl. So it's best to keep bananas out of the fridge and away from other fruits. Next slide. Again, wrapping your lettuce in a paper towel and putting it in a reusable Ziploc bag will help it last 4 times longer. Next slide, please. And this is one of my most astonishing facts. Every year, Kiwis throw away 20 million loaves of bread, which is just mind-boggling. Our humid climate means that bread doesn't always last that well in the pantry. So freezing is a great option if you've got the space. Frozen bread can go straight into the toaster at breakfast, or if you're making sandwiches in the morning, by lunchtime, they are defrosted and that lettuce still stays crispy. If you're not afraid of freezing though, keep it in its original packaging and don't store it in the fridge. It'll actually go stale quicker if it's kept in the fridge. Next slide. There we go. I think there's maybe a delay on my side, so you're waiting for it to change. So salad greens like rocket and baby spinach will last 2 times longer if you keep them in an airtight container, preferably glass, so it lasts much longer than your plastic. Next slide. Kiwis waste an incredible 16 million worth of cheese every year. which as a cheese lover is just incomprehensible. I don't understand how people can't eat it before it goes off. But the best way to store a large block of cheese so it doesn't grow mold or dry out is to wrap that block tightly in its original packaging and place it in a cloth cheese bag and keep it in the fridge. If you don't have a cloth bag, you can wrap it tightly in a beeswax wrap or cling film if you must. Or for hard cheeses, you can consider grating it up and freezing it. So it works really well if you portion it out and keep it in the freezer. So when you can throw it on a pizza, or if you're serving any dish that's going in the oven, and it's a really great way to keep, especially if you find a good bargain of a big 2 kilo block of cheese. It's a really great option to freeze cheese. Next slide, please. The celery will last 5 days longer, or 5 times longer, sorry, if you keep it in an airtight container with the paper towel. Next slide. And kiwis, again, throw away an incredible amount of potatoes. So 12,000 tonnes of potatoes. Many people know they need to be stored in a cool, dry and dark place, but often people make the mistake of storing them alongside tomatoes, onions. We need to keep them separate. They both release moisture, which can cause them to sprout faster. And unwashed potatoes last longer. So if you've growing your own potatoes at home, keep them in the dirt. It's really good for them. Next slide, please. And final tip of the day, and it's the one tip that I would say if you don't adopt anything I've talked about today, one thing I would love it for you to think about is when you've done your shopping and you're putting your groceries away, please don't let that half-empty container of yogurt or this week's leftovers kind of get lost in the back of the fridge. Bring those items forward and put the new stuff at the back, or consider setting aside a shelf or section of your fridge for items that need to be eaten first, or you can label the items directly with an Eat Me First sticker or a label to let you know when it was cooked and when it needs to be eaten by. And final slide. So it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I hope that it was helpful. But yeah, we have lots more tips, tricks, and recipes on the Love Food Hate Waste website on our social channels. So please do follow along, and be happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophie. That was so useful. And I'll be honest, I have definitely taken some tips down. I had been storing some of my food wrong. So definitely will partake in doing some more of this. But moving on to SJ. SJ, you're up.
Ora, thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Sarah Jane, SJ for short, and I am the project manager for Compost Collective. So Compost Collective is a Auckland Council behaviour change programme, and it's delivered by 2 organisations. One is Eco Matters Environment Trust, and we're based in West Auckland, and Kaipariki Project, who are based on the North Shore. So it's a collaboration partnership between our 2 organisations, and we deliver Compost Collective on behalf of Auckland Council. The programme has been running for next slide, I suppose, about 7 years. So we've got a bit of a history there with this programme, which has been fantastic, and it's well supported, and it's one of the main strategies, I suppose, for Auckland with dealing with food waste for households. So our target audience, next slide, please, is households, residents, to encourage them to compost their food scraps. We also support a growing network of community composting hubs across New Zealand, as well as Auckland. And we do, as well as running workshops, we also try and get that 10% of green waste as well out of landfill, because we know that that's a big issue as well for Aucklanders in general. Next slide. I think I actually just covered that, who our target audiences were. So we can go to the next slide. So home composting, and again, this is not just for Auckland, it's for everyone in New Zealand. There's three main systems that we teach people: worm farming, bokashi, and cold compost. So we run different types of workshops. So we do a scheduled workshop, which is where we teach people the basics of all three systems. And then from there, people can basically take the information that they've learned at the workshop and decide which system best suits their household. We also give people a discount voucher for attending a face-to-face workshop. So you can go onto the back of our website, and we've got a bespoke e-commerce platform. So you punch in your discount code that you receive from attending the workshop, and we'll send a system directly to your house. So that's pretty good. We also do what we call self-generated workshops. So for those, and we have a lot of repeat people that we engage with. So they might have started cold composting, but they now want to learn how to do a hot compost, for example. So our tutors, we've got 12 tutors located all across Auckland, and they run self-generated workshops. So if you've got a group that are interested and they want to learn how to do a hot compost, make a composting bucket out of a washing machines, for example. It could be anything that you're interested in. If you've got a group of people, they'll come along and do a workshop with that group as well. Next slide. So like I sort of mentioned before, the program's been running for 7 years, and to date we've reached almost 33,000 people in Auckland alone. We've got 12 facilitators on the ground that are all based in Auckland, with multiple different languages as well for tutors, Māori speaking, Korean, Chinese. As you can appreciate, Auckland's a pretty diverse community, and we also have fact sheets with 12, I think it's 12 or 13 different languages on them as well. We had one participant from Spain, and she realized that we didn't have a Spanish fact sheet, so she translated the fact sheets for us in Spanish, so we've now got a Spanish fact sheet, so that's really cool. And like I say, we've also got a mini grant that we offer to community composting hubs. So there's a growing network of community composting hubs in Auckland and across New Zealand. And so we provide a small grant up to about $500 to help those community gardens with infrastructure, so tools or you name it, wheelbarrows or whatever it might be, DIY systems that they want. And then the idea is that they can open up that community composting hub out to the community, so they can bring their food waste to that site. Workshops delivered last year, well, this last financial year, we did 358 workshops, and we delivered that to over 3,400 participants. I'm yet to do the stats for the whole 7 years, so it's on my list of things to do. Through that we've managed to divert 237.2 tons of food waste from landfill, and supported 17 community composting hubs across Auckland. And this last year, we've helped support a group called the Tamaki Makaurau Composters Network. So that's really focusing on the network within Auckland and supporting those hubs to be kind of one. And there's also an Aotearoa Composters network as well, which has been developed. Next slide, please. So it's also part of the platform. So we manage the platform itself. So the platform is the website currently. And so we work with the tutors to set up the map so that if you go onto the website, you can see where the workshops are happening. You can register, all of the fact sheets and all the information are on there. And then we've also got Share Waste. So Share Waste was actually an initiative that started in Australia. And probably about 5 years ago, we managed to bring the application across to New Zealand, and it's now part of Compost Collective's website. So Share Waste is a peer-to-peer app, effectively. So you can go onto there wherever you are in the country. So this applies to everyone, not just Aucklanders. You can go on there and you can punch in your address, say that you want to become a host or a donor. So a host means that you're accepting people's food scraps, or a donor meaning I've got heaps and I want to give it to someone in my local area. So you can register as either or both if you want. And you can check out where people are in your neighborhood so that you can find like-minded people. For example, I've got 6 chickens and I'm desperately trying to find enough food to feed them all. So I can go on there and I can tap up my neighbours and say, hey, look, you've got food scraps, bring it my way and I'll give you fresh eggs in return. So it's a really popular way for Aucklanders and New Zealanders to kind of connect on that community level. So as you can see, those are our participant numbers to date for Auckland. So over 5,500 people, and for the rest of the New Zealand, it's a similar amount as well. So, and that's still going strong today. And it's also got the community hubs listed on there as well, which is quite good. Next slide, please. I think that's it, isn't it? Oh yeah, perfect. So I've got all the links on there. So if you want to find out a bit more about us, we've got Compost Collective's website, Share Waste. We're also on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know about Instagram, what we've got on there, but some really nice pictures of compost, believe it or not. And we've also got a YouTube channel where we've got all of our tutors doing some little videos on how to compost. And I think that's everything. Did I manage to nail it in 10 minutes?
You were amazing. Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to our Q&A. I will just stop sharing my screen so I can actually have a look at all the questions that have come up. Let me just have a quick look. I think thank you for both so much knowledge sharing, and I think there's a lot of appetite when it comes to that food waste, especially in Auckland where we've just seen the food council bins rolled out. SJ, I've got a question for you myself, have you seen any changes to the compost scape with the new council bins rolling around?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And luckily, I am also leading the canvassing team for Auckland. So I've got quite good links into what's been going on the ground. So the food scraps rollout for Auckland started, I think it was April, May time. So, I mean, given it's quite one of the largest rollouts in the Northern Hemisphere, it's still kind of halfway through and we're just about to hit Manukau, and yeah, that rollout's about to happen. So it's only been sort of rolling out now for what, 5 months or so. So, we've still kind of got to get a gauge on what kind of behaviours that's going to have and what kind of impact that's going to have on people's home composting. But generally speaking, you've got people that have composted for their entire lives and they're never going to give up composting. And then you've also got people that have never even separated out their food scraps. So you've got this huge spectrum of people and where they are on their food scraps journey or food waste journey. So composting is, we're not going to get out with food scraps or the food waste issue by composting. So there was great to have another solution, which is the food scraps collection. And I think, you're going to get some people that are going to continue composting and they might never use the food scraps bin. And then, like I say, you're going to have people that are, going to use the food scraps bin and they're never going to compost, whether it be, because they just have issues maybe with space. There's a cost barrier to purchasing any of those systems. And a lot of people are quite apprehensive about composting due to rats. So we also do provide free rat traps. We work in conjunction with biosecurity. And so if anyone wants to have a rat trap as part of ordering one of the systems, we also give them a rat trap as well. So yeah, I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, there's no excuse now for not getting a service if you're offering all the solutions to the barriers. Sophie, there's quite... Yes, absolutely. Sophie, there's quite a few questions on the storing and some of the tips you've given. One question being, where is best to store bananas? Now, not in the fruit bowl, but where should we keep them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, they should be in a separate bowl, out of the fridge, out of direct sunlight. But yeah, you can just keep them on the counter. But the key is out of the fridge and away from other fruits.
And there was another question on storage on how far away to keep onions and potatoes. They are in paper bags, but close in the pantry.
Yeah,
Is that still
saw that in the
okay?
chat. So great that you've got them in paper bags. That's perfect. So they can actually be really close proximity. You know, it's fine to have, if they're in separate bags, it should be fine. But yeah, even if they're in sort of separate bowls, key is just to keep them separated. But yeah, and in a darker, cooler, dry location.
Thank you. No more ripening bananas and potatoes and onions going off. Now, SJ, there was a question on compostable packaging, and I think that we've certainly seen a shift in a lot of packaging going compostable. And I think personally, I know that there's not a lot of value in that when it comes to a compost. That packaging doesn't really add a lot of nutrients to the compost. So what's your thoughts on that compostable packaging, and how can people process? Is it their value moving to compostable items, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a nightmare, isn't it? The old compostable packaging debate. And it's yeah, well, I mean, obviously moving away from polystyrene packaging to something more sustainable like paper or is a good option. But it does obviously have a lot of confusion, and people don't 100% understand what exactly is compostable packaging. There's different standards across New Zealand, the world, and so my personal view, and one that we also do tell our participants, is that if in doubt, just leave it out. If you're not sure, just unfortunately put it in the landfill, because a lot of it isn't compostable. And so it's a tricky one.
Sophie, do you have any thoughts yourself on when it comes, I guess where you come in is compostable packaging is a solution, but I guess the best angle is always to go with a lot of these the fruits that we buy come already with skin, so that's already a compostable packaging that does add a lot of nutrients to your compost. Do you have any thoughts on the whole shift towards compostable packaging?
I would just love to see the packaging gone, especially when it comes to fruit and veg. I know in store now you can, they remove plastic bags and you can take your own cloth bags. I'd love to see more of that. But yeah, I agree with Sarah. It's around that kind of education piece. It's really hard to know what can and can't go. But even in your backyard compost bin, Sarah, SJ, sorry, I think it's some things that say they're compostable just won't break down at the speed with which you need it to. So I'd just love to see us going into stores with our own packaging, and the more we do that, it'll encourage other foods to go down the same path. So even if it's dry goods, there is generally a section that you can take your own, scoop it out yourself. But yeah, it'd be great if we can bring our own jars in, and you just weigh the jar and pay for what you take. So there's some small stores around the country that do that already. And abroad, it's becoming more and more common that you take your own jars, your own containers, and we just don't have to worry about it.
Amazing. I think that's all we've got time for now, but I think the last question was a great example of Recycling Week's #1 mission, which is obviously in day one is to avoid packaging altogether, even if it's compostable, because as SJ told us, it isn't the most nutritious item to put in your compost. Thank you so much, both of you, for all your knowledge and expertise, and thank you everyone for attending. Tomorrow we have Waste Free Tuesday, so I hope to see you all back again to tune in on what else you can do when it comes to Recycling Week. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Natalia. Thanks everyone for coming along.
See ya.
Bye.